Buying a new iPhone is expensive, but these cameras are also really great. So the question is, for a photographer filmmaker, is it worth upgrading from the 11 Pro to the 12 Pro because of the cameras? Is there any difference between the video? Are the photos better quality? Can you see a difference? That's what we're gonna try to find out today.
Dare to love, so tell me what you're thinking Show me how to dare to love, so tell me what you're thinking of. Show me how to dare to love, love, love.
All right, testing done. I just want to preface this with this is not scientific as usual. Just wanted to see, kind of out of curiosity, but also just so I can tell people like, oh, just get the 11 Pro, it's just as good, or you should definitely get the 12 Pro. This was my rig. This is like my stupid rig that I call. And I literally had to just like tape on the ND filter because I don't have a way of attaching ND filters for the time-lapse test. Polar Pro, I need a case for the new iPhone 12. Quick intermission. I'm gonna review the footage that you already watched and I'll be right back. I gotta make a confession. This comparison is completely botched, and I'll tell you why in a second. But first, I got distracted transferring footage, and you have to watch this video. It's very rare that I'm crying or almost in tears watching a YouTube video, but this had all the feels. Danny sorry, Danny, I don't really know how to say your name. This video was next level, like so good. Highly recommend watching it. He basically recreates, but not just recreates, he like experiences his favorite moment in a movie, and you just gotta watch it. All right, first off, did you guess which camera was which? Camera A was the 11 Pro, camera B was the 12 Pro. Were you able to guess? Well, actually, I don't know how much that matters because this was completely botched. This is what the footage looks like straight out of camera if you compare the two. Yikes. Yeah, the 12 Pro straight out of camera, when you put it into Premiere Pro, does not look good right now. It's so overexposed, doesn't look good. You might have seen this on Instagram and Twitter too, people posting, and it's just like even worse, crazy overexposed. And this has to do with the whole Dolby Vision HDR. I assume that's my only explanation. It took a lot of color correcting to try to kind of match them. And actually it was almost, I think it is impossible unless you like mask out different areas to match them. Because for example, here in this clip, my sweater is actually darker on the 12 Pro, but in the waveform, the shadows are higher because of a different area being darker on the 11. It was just a nightmare. And so that's why this comparison is kind of botched in some ways, but I think we can still compare the two and make some conclusions based on that. But this is definitely not scientific right now. I don't even know how you would do a scientific test right now. I don't think it's possible. Okay, I don't know if this is gonna show up in camera, but just looking at the iPhone screens, the footage looks very different. I assume because of Dolby Vision. The colors are definitely different. I'd say the 11 actually looks a little bit like softer almost, like the HDR is almost doing a better job actually. But my theory right now, at least as I'm filming this, is that that's just Dolby Vision, just changing the way the footage is being shown. And right now it seems like it's being shown a little bit too bright. It looks too bright, you have to like bring it down. Maybe they just need to tweak it a little bit. Overall quality, I did see a difference. The 12 Pro did look better. It was cleaner in the shadows, especially on the ultra-wide camera, but also the colors are different now. They've tweaked the colors a little bit. They look more natural, maybe a little bit more on the cool side, whereas the 11 Pro had a bit of a green tint, and especially skin tones never really looked that natural. Now I think the colors do look more natural, and again, the shadows just seem to be a little bit more clean. But like I said, I had to do a lot of color correcting to make the 12 Pro look decent, whereas the 11 Pro kind of, that's what it looks like straight out of camera. So that's gonna be an issue for some people who don't know how to color correct or color grade that well. It is a little tricky right now, I would say. But even with that heavy correction, it didn't fall apart, so the 10-bit codec is pretty nice. But yeah, you're gonna have to do some work. Overall, the image quality is better on the 12 Pro, but you're gonna have to do some work to get it. The stabilization, I would say, looked pretty much identical. I didn't notice any difference between the two. Dynamic range seemed very similar, but again, the shadows just seem a little bit more clean now, I would say. Super slow motion, the quality looked very similar. I would say the actual quality looked pretty much the same, but there is a little bit more contrast, a little bit more brightness added. This footage actually isn't Dolby Vision, so they are apples to apples, straight out of camera, no corrections. You can definitely see on the 12 Pro, it's a little bit more vibrant, a little bit more, I feel like the colors are a little bit more saturated. It is a tiny bit more clean again, I would say, and the colors are more natural again. Then when we look at the photos, let's talk about the selfie camera first. It does look more clean on the 12 Pro. And again, the colors look a little bit different, maybe a little bit more natural. The telephoto shots were really hard to get. It looked different, but I don't know if that's just because the framing wasn't the same. So I can't really say too much about the telephoto. The ultrawide again looks cleaner. There's definitely a difference there. I think the ultrawide had the biggest upgrade, even though it's basically, I think, the same camera, but through software updates, tweaks, I assume they were just able to make it look a little bit cleaner. Plus they did talk about the corner distortion being better now. The wide cameras to me actually look pretty similar, at least in daylight when there's enough light. I'm sure in low light you would see a bigger difference. I assume the 12 Pro would be quite a bit better. There were some color differences for sure. Again, I think the 12 Pro just looks a little bit more natural when it comes to colors. But in terms of photos, I don't think there's any really big differences between the two phones. Time-lapse, on the other hand, is a completely different question. The 12 Pro is so much better because now we have that long shutter look. And basically I just stuck on the biggest Polar Pro ND filter I had and faked a low light situation, so it kicked in the long shutter and it looks awesome. It looks so much better than the typical 11 Pro or any of the older iPhones time lapses, and it looks so much better than, for example, the kind of fake long long exposure that you get with the Moment app. This is true long exposure and it looks really good. So if you're a time-lapse person, it is definitely worth the upgrade. And now the whole Polar Pro Light Chaser Pro case lens system has way more use. Having that ND filter is gonna be really, really handy for those nice time lapses so you don't have to tape on an ND filter. So overall, I think the cameras are pretty similar. There are more differences than I expected between the two phones. I thought they were gonna be way closer because on paper, really only the wide got an upgrade. The lens is a little bit faster at 1.6 versus 1.8 on 11 Pro. And then we do have the 10-bit Dolby Vision footage, which right now it's like a good thing, but also a bad thing. I'm sure in the future it'll be mostly just a good thing. Right now it's just a little bit more work. And then we will be getting Pro RAW for photos, and that might just be like a really big difference. I don't know yet, we'll see. And then lastly, we have the night mode in the portrait photos. So when you want that shallow depth of field look, you can still take a long exposure photo, which could be handy, but I don't know how often I'm gonna really be needing that in the end. Conclusions, I would say there was a bigger difference than I thought. If you're already on the 11 Pro, I don't know if it's worth the upgrade to the 12 Pro just for the cameras right now. There is a difference, but I don't know if it's worth paying all that extra money for that minor difference right now, unless you're like really into smartphone videography or photography. If you don't have an 11, it is definitely worth getting. It'll be such a huge upgrade to your older iPhone. I highly recommend it if you're a photographer or videographer. I don't think you're gonna regret that one, especially just because you always have this one along with you, whether it's taking a photo of your kid or a video clip of your family or friends. Yeah, these cameras are incredible, and it has completely changed the way that I make my YouTube videos now. I have no problems using these cameras in my videos every once in a while. But I am very curious what the 12 Pro Max is gonna be like, because that's where we really got the camera upgrade. So yeah, that might be the go-to iPhone now, even though I have tried to stay away from the really big phones. I kind of like the smaller phones, but I might just have to sacrifice for the cameras. Anyways, I hope you guys like this little comparison, even though it was really botched. If you're okay with botched comparisons, I would love it if you subscribe to the channel. We are really close to 1 million subscribers, so that is crazy. So yeah, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video. See ya.